It's August 7th here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Dami. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour, starting with the World Scout Jamboree taking place in South Korea's Saemangeum. Because of the extreme heat, events at the campsite have been largely overhauled with various cultural activities added, and the much-anticipated K-pop concert has been rescheduled for Friday in Jeonju City. Seoul City has been selected to host the 2027 World Youth Day. The Pope will also come to the South Korean capital for the Global Catholic Church event for young people. South Korean composer Yoon Han-kyeol has won the 2023 Herbert von Karajan Young Conductors Award. He's the first Korean to be honored with the prize. We start in Saemangeum this morning. The 2023 World Scout Jamboree in South Korea will continue as planned until this Saturday, despite recent challenges, but now with support in various shapes and forms to ensure smooth running for the remaining period. Shin Se-byuk reports.
South Korea will continue with the World Scout Jamboree until August 12th, as planned. That is according to Prime Minister Han on Saturday.
After holding a meeting, we have decided to continue with the Jamboree.
A growing number of participants at this year's Jamboree have been suffering heat-related illnesses due to exposure to extreme heat since it began last Tuesday. The campsite, located on reclaimed land at Saemangeum in Jeollabuk province, lacks natural shade. But there has also been criticism over hospital bed shortages, waterlogged conditions, and bad food. With the decision, the South Korean government vowed to go all out to ensure the smooth running of the Jamboree event. The measures include additional medical staff, air-conditioned buses, and cold water. 60 medical personnel, 64 canopies, and 104 air-conditioned buses have also been installed. On top of that, over 930 additional service personnel have been deployed to keep the campsite hygienic. In total, over 330 air-conditioned buses are available and 1,400 service personnel are working at the site. Multiple South Korean companies are also sending supplies. Samsung affiliates are sending mobile toilets, power generators, medical staff, and more. LG affiliates decided to send a total of 200,000 drinks. Other conglomerates, Hyundai, GS, and E-Mart, are offering bread, water, and maintenance personnel. Also, private organizations such as the Korea International Trade Association and the Korea Chamber of Commerce and Industry have decided to send cooling supplies. And the South Korean government said that because of these efforts, things have improved.
Since the decision to fully support the 2023 World Scout Jamboree, the campsite has been gradually stabilizing.
The director of the World Organization of the Scout Movement, Jacob Murray, also said there had been, quote-unquote, increased improvement in conditions after additional resources were made available. From now until the end of the Jamboree, South Korea will continue to operate a temporary task force to address issues raised during the event. Shin Se-byuk, Arirang News.
Now, as the Jamboree continues, its cultural programs have been expanded to beyond Saemangeum. Different regions have stepped in to offer their unique tourist programs for Scout members. Lee Kyung-eun has the details.
From Saemangeum Jamboree to Korea Jamboree. From Monday until the end of the Jamboree, 90 new cultural programs will be added nationwide. The central and local governments are arranging these programs after the extreme heat and management issues seen at the main campsite of Saemangeum prompted President Yoon's directive to expand tourist programs nationwide for all young Scouts to enjoy, including those who pulled out early.
The government has proposed forest tours, temple stays, history lessons, and unique regional programs to the Scout Association, vowing full support for Scouts to take part in programs they wish.
Among the programs, sightseeing in Busan, the candidate city of 2030 World Expo, including the famous Haeundae Beach. The iconic Mud Festival in Poryong, a science tour at the country's tech capital, Daejeon, including an astronomical observatory and National Science Museum. And at the historic city of Gyeongju, a Confucian Academy and UNESCO heritage sites, including Bulguksa Temple.
For the usual programs, Scouts need to come back to their tents in Saemangam at 5 p.m. in principle. But because some locations are far, we've also prepared places for them to stay elsewhere for 2 or 3 day schedules.
Seoul is also taking Scouts to major shopping districts and on a night view bus tour, as the city is also considering turning the Hangang River Park into a makeshift camping site. The capital city is where Scouts from the UK are staying after they pulled down from Saemangam. And it's also close to Pyeongtaek, where Scouts from the US are staying at a US military base, Camp Humphreys. On top of these, the organizers, despite delaying the K-pop concert over heat-related safety concerns, will hold the most anticipated event on the last day of Jamboree on the 11th at Jeonju World Cup Stadium. Yoon, Arirang News.
So American and British Scout members have made their way out of the campground. But still, they've discovered ways to keep themselves entertained here in the country. And those who remain are carrying on with their activities with a Scout spirit. Shin Ha-young has more.
Contingents from the US, Britain, and Singapore who decided to leave the World Scout Jamboree campsite all left for their new accommodations over the weekend. The group from the US, consisting of around 1,500 members, left Saemangam on Sunday and moved to Camp Humphreys, an American military garrison in Pyeongtaek of Gyeonggi-do province, citing ongoing extreme weather and conditions at the site. The 4,400 British Scout members, the largest contingent of all the participating countries, began departing from the site on Saturday, with their remaining members set to leave on Monday. They will stay in Seoul until the end of the Jamboree, which will run until Saturday. During their remaining time in South Korea, they will experience a variety of cultural activities, including a tour program honoring British veterans of the Korean War. Part of the group took city tour buses and enjoyed the night view in Seoul on Sunday.
We've been to see temples, we've been to see palaces, we've been experiencing the street food culture. There's so many different cultural experiences that are so different to our own back in the UK, so we're really, really enjoying being here.
Meanwhile, almost 90% of the participating countries have decided to continue with the Jamboree at Saemangam. European countries, including Belgium, which had considered an early departure, as well as Germany and Sweden, have decided to stay at the campsite, citing significant improvements in food and hygiene. Some delegations from countries like the Philippines, Saudi Arabia, and Argentina held a press conference to announce that they will remain until the end of the event.
We are seeing around the site some improvements. We had the word of the leadership of the government that things will be improved.
The remaining Scouts have been traveling around 14 cities and counties in Jeollabuk-do province, enjoying various activities such as archery and search and rescue missions.
For us, it was a very beautiful day today. We had a lot of tips how can we rescue in case of water emergencies, as well as indoor emergencies like fire, earthquakes, and all these things.
The event has now reached a halfway point, and efforts have been made to ensure the remainder of the event is a success. Shin Ha-young, Arirang News.
This summer has been a dreadful one, and just when we thought the heat wave was the last thing to worry about this season, now there's a typhoon on the way. For more, we're joined by Professor Yoon this morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Professor Yoon, let's talk about the unusual heat this summer. First off, why did so many people taking part in the World Scout Jamboree struggle under the sun and come down with heat-related illnesses?
Well, as everyone in Korea experienced these days, scorching heat and high humidity are the deadliest combinations. But heat is everywhere in Korea these days. But the humidity, due to that the Saemangam is lowland, meaning that there's not much of the shadow, plus it's known to have a very bad drainage systems, meaning that the moisture stay in the topsoil. plus the sunlight, that's going to evaporation, meaning that around where we are going to have a very, very, very high humidity. So these two combinations, it just makes things a lot worse than everyone can imagine.
Right. Everybody here in the country has been experiencing this high humidity, but especially over in Saemangeum, because of the geographic characteristics with no shade, the situation got even worse.
That's right. That's right.
Now, the event, nonetheless, has been rearranged with a variety of tourism programs, but, the weather still remains a concern. Are the participants, would you say, are they safe from the blistering heat now? I mean, what should they still be mindful of in this hot, humid weather?
Well, hopefully they send some more equipment, including like the air-conditioned buses. Mm-hmm. So after they do the outside activity, which is okay to do so up to a certain amount of time, but after that activity, just take extra time to take rest and hydrate it. When you hydrate it, not only drinking water, but better be sometimes a sports drink, because our body needs those the substances. So take some good rest during, in between the activities, and then just lower down your body temperature as much as you can. Mm-hmm. And then you have to take some good rest. Yes.
Right. Enough water. It's no exaggeration to say enough water and frequent breaks in between.
That's right. That's right.
Now, Professor Yoon, we have this entire week that is supposed to be still hot, but with rain showers in the middle. Now, will rain showers be the only thing to trouble the Scouts now?
Until the end of this week, we are going to still have a very high temperatures. Mm-hmm. This is for sure. But then time to time, we have these thunderstorms. But more importantly, this Typhoon Khanun is expected to land near Busan area. So although the Saemangeum is far away, but likely entire South Korea will be affected by this typhoon. So please take extra cautions, and you have to stay tuned for upcoming weather news and forecast.
Right. You mentioned Typhoon Khanun is on the way. Now, it's forecast to hit the South Korea's southern region as early as this Thursday. Let's talk about this typhoon itself. Why such a change in its course northward from the west of Japan?
This typhoon is, the path is very strange. It's basically going zigzag. Even several days ago, the track forecast has a diversity of more than 1,000 kilometers away. So one center is going this way, the other center going the other directions. But now all the centers are coming to a bit of consensus, meaning that around Tuesday, Wednesday, the typhoon will head north, and it passed through Kyushu of Japan in Wednesday, and on Thursday, it will be somewhere near Korea. It may land it as we forecast right now, mm-hmm. but we still have to be sure. We have to check very frequently where it actually lands and then how strong it can be.
Right. This Typhoon Khanun is very unpredictable, right?
Yes, it's very unpredictable, yes.
Now, Professor Yoon, you just mentioned the entire nation may be under the influence of this Typhoon Khanun this week. Now then, how likely is it that the typhoon will move up and impact the Jamboree event?
So as I said, whether typhoon lands near Busan or just it doesn't land actually going outside of near the shore area, those people in Saemangeum or in Jamboree, please just don't care where it actually goes. You are going to have a very strong rains and very strong winds on Thursday. So, and then you are not staying. Those people in Jamboree, they don't stay in the inside the building. They stay in tent. Mm-hmm. You know what does it mean that when there's a rain and then the winds, staying in tent is going to be very difficult. So. When it comes to the point that you have to take some actions, just please go ahead to do so. but then just keep watching this weather forecast and the weather news and where it goes and how strong, and then what's the action that you have to take.
Definitely. Professor Yoon, thank you so much for your insight this morning. You have a good week.
Thank you very much.
Seoul has been chosen to host a global Catholic Church event for young people, World Youth Day, in 2027. Now, up to 1 million people are expected to attend the event, with the Pope himself also set to visit. Lee Seung-jae reports.
At the closing mass for the 2023 World Youth Day in Lisbon, Portugal, Pope Francis announced the host city for the next World Youth Day.
The next World Youth Day will take place in Asia. It will be in South Korea, in Seoul.
The World Youth Day brings together young people from around the world in celebration of their Catholic faith. The massive event runs for 5 or 6 days, with the reigning Pope also in attendance. Seoul will become the first Asian city to host the event since Manila in 1995, where over 5 million people attended the event's closing mass. Seoul's Archdiocese estimates that around 700,000 to 1 million Catholics will be in attendance for the Seoul World Youth Day, with 300,000 traveling to South Korea.
Since in the past 3 years we have undergone a COVID situation in Korea, sadly the number of people going to church in Korea has declined. And we sincerely hope that throughout preparations and also during World Youth Day, it will be a great opportunity to develop and mature our youth ministry. So that's what I am hoping for as our journey begins for the preparation for World Youth Day.
The announcement comes as Cardinal Andrew Yam-Soo-jung and Archbishop Peter Jung-Soon-taek of the Seoul Archdiocese traveled to Lisbon last Monday to make a pitch for Seoul. Cardinal Lazaro Yoo-Heung-sik, prefect of the Congregation for the Clergy of the Holy See, and Oh Hyun-ju, the South Korean ambassador to the Holy See, also took part in the pitch. The event is also expected to provide a massive boost to the local economy. The Lisbon World Youth Day is expected to have been worth about $622 million. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
South Korea's Yoon Han-kyeol won the 2023 Herbert von Karajan Young Conductors Award on Sunday. He's the first Korean to be recognized with such honor. During the award concert weekend at the 2023 Salzburg Festival in Austria, Yoon took the top prize ahead of competitors from Belarus and Austria. He wins a cash prize of $16,500 and also the opportunity to conduct a concert with the ORF Radio Symphony Orchestra Vienna and a rising young soloist as part of the 2024 Salzburg Festival. The Von Karajan Award is considered a launchpad for a conductor's international career. Now, we have an American couple who lived in Korea back in the 1960s and 70s as members of the Peace Corps, an American volunteer organization. This couple recently donated more than 1,000 pictures, old paintings, and books that carry stories of Korea from years and years ago. Our culture correspondent Song Yoo-jin met them.
For Gary and Marianne Mintier, Korea holds a special place in their hearts.
I always say Urinada. We weren't born here, but it's Urinada.
Back in 1969, the Mintiers came to Korea as Peace Corps volunteers and worked as English instructors for 6 years. During that time, they developed a keen interest in old Korean artworks.
When I was in college, I took one art course, and it had a little bit of Asian art. And I liked it then. And then when we came to Korea, we didn't have a lot of money at first, but when I could, I would buy a certain piece of art that I'd seen in a store, and my wife would buy me one for anniversaries and birthdays.
Their collection grew to include a total of 150 books, paintings, and calligraphic works. Among them is a painting by Song Soo-myeon, a renowned painter of the late Joseon dynasty. However, this year, the Mintiers made the decision to donate all their cherished pieces to Korea, including 1,000 photos they took during their stay, which captured Korea's struggle to heal the scars of war.
We were really fortunate to be in Korea at that time when many Koreans had other priorities, right? And art wasn't necessarily one of them. And so I said it's time to give them back to Korea. I mean, Korea gave us so much while we were here and even afterwards.
The Overseas Korean Cultural Heritage Foundation has played a crucial role.
We first learned about the Mintiers collection in 2017 through an instructor at the University of Southern California. Over the years, we built a strong sense of trust through email exchanges, which I think ultimately led to this generous donation.
Marking the occasion, the Mintiers have returned to Korea, their third visit after departing in 1975. The most recent was 2013. They say they're always amazed by the remarkable progress Korea has made. But one thing remains unchanged.
The Korean people are still the same. They still have that warmth, that heart, that giving that they had that made us stay when we came, right?
Yeah, most Peace Corps volunteers came for 2 years. We stayed 6.5 years.
The photographs taken by the Mintiers are currently on display at the Busan Museum, while the artworks will be unveiled at the National Library of Korea in Seoul next April. 송유진, Arirang News.
Good morning, I'm Matthew Ashley, and we now turn over to stories from around the world. We begin in Crimea, where airstrikes from Ukraine on Sunday have damaged 2 road bridges. And Ukraine has claimed responsibility for the strikes, one of which struck the Chonha road bridge that links mainland-occupied Ukraine to Crimea. A smaller bridge linking the town of Henichesk with the peninsula's northeast coast was also struck, damaging a nearby gas pipeline. No deaths or injuries have been reported, and the bridges are expected to reopen soon. The strikes come a day after a wave of Russian missile and drone attacks on Ukraine, where at least 6 people died and a blood transfusion center was destroyed in Kupiansk. Now, in Pakistan, at least 30 people have been killed and 100 injured after a train derailed on Sunday local time. The train was headed from Karachi to Havelian when it came off the tracks near Nawab Shah in the southern Sindh province. It was carrying over 1,000 passengers and was reportedly traveling at normal speed. The cause of the crash is being investigated. Pakistan's railway system has a poor safety record, and such accidents are not uncommon. In 2021, at least 40 people died after 2 trains collided in the same province. 2023 Women's World Cup favourites, Team USA, have been knocked out of the tournament. They were beaten 5-4 on penalties in Melbourne on Sunday, following a goalless draw with Sweden. The US dominated most of the match, but couldn't find the back of the net, thanks to Sweden's keeper. The match moved on to penalties, where 3 US players, including Megan Rapinoe, missed their spot kicks. Sweden's winning penalty by Lena Hurtig initially looked like it had been saved, but goal line technology confirmed that the ball had crossed the goal line. South Africa, meanwhile, has had its World Cup dreams ended following a 2-0 defeat to the Netherlands in Sydney. Sweden will face Japan in the quarterfinals, while the Netherlands will face Spain. And finally, in a social media post on Sunday, Elon Musk has said that a potential cage match between him and Meta owner Mark Zuckerberg will be streamed on his social media platform X, and that all of the match's proceeds would go to a charity for veterans. Zuckerberg responded by recommending that a different platform be used. The date of the proposed fight has not been set, but Zuckerberg has suggested August 26th. It's also been suggested that the mixed martial arts fight will be held in Las Vegas. Talk of the match began in June when Musk tweeted that he was up for a cage match with the Meta owner. Zuckerberg replied a day later, asking Musk to send location of the proposed fight.
Good morning. Heavy rain is dumping 80 millimeters an hour in the east of Gangwon-do province since last night. It could come down at a rate of up to 200 millimeters into tomorrow with a rain advisory issued. Other than rain-affected areas, the rest of the country is sizzling in intense heat. Western parts of the country will be hotter this afternoon with daytime highs easily surpassing 35 degrees Celsius. There is a chance of passing rain in most regions, which won't help to relieve the heat, but will only add steamy heat to the air. Saemangum in Puan County will continue to have high heat at 36 degrees Celsius or 97 degrees Fahrenheit under sunny skies. Meanwhile, Typhoon Khanun changed its course and is now heading towards the Korean peninsula. For now, the weather agency is forecasting that Khanun could strike the coastal regions of Gyeongsang-namdo by Thursday afternoon, and from Wednesday, southern regions will start to have the stormy weather. So please stay updated with the latest weather forecast. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
We thank you for watching New Day at Arirang. We'll be back tomorrow at 9 a.m. Korea time.
한국에 오면 먹어야죠. 먹어도 끝이 없는 나라. 감당할 수 있겠니? 웰컴. 엄청난 에너지를 춤으로 뿜어내는 나라. 감당할 수 있겠니? I'm live!
저를 도와주시는 분들이
저희와 함께 해주시는 세션분들
아무리 봐도 이거 먹지 펜션 같은데 아니라고 아무도 안 하는 거고.
좋아요.
So, you want a special experience? What? Travel? Meet K-pop stars? Wow! Okay, tell me, who do you like? Of course I know them. Here's a tip. You can travel and meet K-pop stars. What? You don't trust me? Who do you take me for? Okay, come close. Closer. Simply K-pop contour. No need to thank me. Oh, you're watching Simply K-pop Contour. You're watching Arirang.
Welcome. (24시간) 불이 꺼지지 않는 나라. 감당할 수 있겠니? 하나, 둘, 셋.
Hey, Mr. Cupid, make sure you listen to what I say. I may be stupid or quite naive.
끝없이 쏟아지는 포토스팟. 휴대폰 한 대로 감당할 수 있겠니?
Arrow straight through my heart.
We're here to make a new type of news.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation. Making news just for you. It's August 7th here in Seoul. I'm Yoon, and this is News Generation, where we make the news at Arirang's very own open studio. Every morning, we'll discuss the top issues and latest current affairs affecting people in their 20s and 30s. Joining me in the studio is Kim Xiang.
Happy Monday, Yoon.
Happy Monday, and Chichi.
Happy Monday.
Happy Monday. Now, both are here to speak on behalf of people in their 20s and 30s. As usual, let's start with our news feed, which covers different hashtags and news items that have been trending on social media over the past 24 hours. Last week, 40,000 young people from around the world arrived in Puan County, Jeollabuk-do Province to attend the World Scout Jamboree. But after many of them fell ill from a record heat wave and what attendees called poor quality food and facilities, some countries have called their scouts to come back home. The US and UK teams took their participants to nearby hotels and army bases. Though the World Organization of the Scout Movement has asked the Korean Scout Association to end the event early, Korean organizers haven't canceled it yet. If it continues, the event will last till August 12th. Meanwhile, President Yoon has allocated $5.3 million to provide unlimited air-conditioned buses and personnel. Moving on, last Thursday, a man in his 20s went on a stabbing rampage near a department store in Bundang, Gyeonggi-do Province. The police announced on Sunday that one of the 14 wounded, a woman in her 60s, has died from her wounds. The suspect, a 22-year-old identified by his surname Che, will now formally be charged with murder. And what happened in Bundang wasn't the first of its kind. Just a week before, we saw a similar stabbing rampage in Seoul where the culprit had no specific motive. Since then, we've seen people post similar murder threats online, sparking concern that we may see copycat crimes. Police on Sunday said they've tracked down 54 people who seem to be connected to these posts, and authorities identified a few of them as minors. And as much as many Koreans are on their toes fearing similar cases, authorities have taken swift action. The presidential office has decided to dispatch police to areas where people warned they would go attack people with a knife. As of Sunday, the list had 89 locations around the country. Police have also been stopping people who were seemingly to carry a weapon. And as of Sunday, they screened 442 people and they arrested 14 on a range of charges. Now, Chi-hee, were you one of the many, including myself, I was very scared. Were you one of the many scared to not even try to leave the house over the weekend?
I was really scared as well, and I was really worried about the people, my friends and acquaintances who live in some of these areas that were mentioned. And I also received text messages from my families and friends as well. And in regards to why I think people upload warnings like these is because people who are dissatisfied with their life, they really want to make an influence or exert influence on the public in a distorted way, and they're really trying to seek attention from them in this distorted way, really. And I think it's just really unhealthy, and we usually call them like keyboard warriors, people who are hidden behind anonymity, and they're just trying to control others. If people have that sense of fear because of these warnings, they feel as though they have exerted influence on them.
As if they have, ironically, some sort of power, whether that be positive or negative influence. The fact that they can make people so scared, it's very twisted, as you mentioned. And Seoul, I actually tried staying home the whole weekend because I was very scared. But yesterday I had to go out to Gangnam for a while to run an errand, and I was so scared because it was one of the locations of the list where people warned they would be going on a stabbing rampage. But I did feel a bit relieved once I saw some police officers out on duty. And do you think that the Korean government's efforts to prevent these terror attacks by dispatching police officers is actually proven to be effective? And do you think it's enough? And also, I think we should keep in mind that these motiveless crimes are targeting not only females, but also males.
Oh yeah, the general population.
Yeah, the general public. And so I'm wondering, did you buy any self-defense weapons to try to, you know, react towards these motiveless crimes?
I mean, first of all, you asked me a whole range of questions.
Yes.
I mean, first of all, I don't think it doesn't quite make sense to expect the government and the police to be able to predict and prevent these single-person organized random public attacks. 54 suspects who've acted on and posted a murder threat online have been arrested as of 6 p.m. yesterday. There are talks among the authorities to punish the culprits of the recent stabbing incidents with life sentence without any parole as well. South Korea is still one of the safest countries in the world with murder, homicide rate scoring around 0.6 people per 100,000 population annually. And given Korea's population of around 50 million, that is on average only about 30 people lost to intentional murder per year in Korea. So I mean, Korea ranks with Norway, Switzerland, Japan and Singapore countries with the lowest crime, especially homicide rates in the world. I mean, as reported, the suspects did suffer from a fit of sort of collective delusions and paranoia, as well as Chi-hee rightfully mentioned. They are rather social misfits. You know, they're quite unhappy with their life. As you can see in Korean local news reports, there's been a record of what their life was like, some failures here and there, and they've been frustrated. I think that's why you see a lot of these copycat crimes taking place. Quite a number of them were almost like jokes that they posted online.
Or like a challenge.
Or like a challenge. Even this morning I saw news reports, you know, taking screenshots where I saw the reports where they would have start the sentence or the title of a post seemingly like a murder prediction type of thing, where we saw the real cases, and it turned out to be free hugs at Gangnam Station. And it turns out to be, you know, Shinnim Station at this hour.
It's nothing to joke about at the moment, though.
It's nothing to joke about. And I mean, to be honest, I did want to buy a pepper spray. I think that would be the most efficient in knife attacks as well. I mean, first of all, if knife attacks, you got to run away. There's no, you can't really fight it. And my concern also here is that the overgeneralization of, you know, this might lead to the police and the governments of censoring the online space more and tracking down potential, they might say, suspects or future suspects, and that might be really censoring the space of free speech and things like that, which is a concern as well.
But at the moment, I think the most urgent issue is safety and trying to tame down the general public's fear of potential terror attacks that we may be seeing. Hopefully we don't. And that was our news feed for this Monday. Let's head head straight into our discussion topic now. Are you in a relationship? If not, you're not alone. There's actually a growing number of millennials and Gen Z in Korea who are choosing to never date. Take a look at the screen to find out more. If you've never been in a relationship before, in Korea, people might call you 모쏠. It's short for 모태솔로, which means that you've been single for your whole life since birth. And it definitely hasn't been easy for 모쏠 to live with this title, where being in a relationship is considered the norm. There's this social atmosphere of parents or elderly people asking their children who they're meeting with these days or when they're going to start dating. But recently, we've seen a change in Korea's vibrant dating life. Last year, the Korea Population and Health Welfare Association surveyed more than 1,000 young adults aged 19 to 34. 3 out of 10 had never been in a romantic relationship before. And 65% of the others said they weren't romantically involved at the moment. This mainly had to do with living costs and the economic burden of dating. Single since birth, which is known as 모쏠 in Korean. As we just saw, there's so many people who've never been in a romantic relationship. And before we look into the reasons why a growing number of young people are like this, let's first find out just how many of the younger generation in Korea are 모쏠.
So the younger generation, in other words, millennials and Gen Zs, are the most sexually and romantically active population, as you'd expect. And even so, it seems like less and less are committing to a relationship. Let's have a look at what the situation looks like in South Korea. Percentage-wise, a survey done by Korea Population, Health and Welfare Association in 2022 on a sample of 1,047 unmarried males and females aged between 19 and 34 suggests that 29.1%, or 3 in 10 millennials and Gen Zs, have never been in a relationship. This figure is similar with the youths in the US, where a survey by research company YPulse showed that 29% of Gen Zs in America have never been in a relationship, whereas only 5% of millennials have never been in a relationship in the US. So, I mean, I think the situation might be sort of inherently different in Korea and the US, though, as any sexual relationship in South Korea culturally demands for a couple to be in a committed relationship. So unlike the rest of the world population, it is likely that Koreans who've never been in a relationship might have actually never had a romantic encounter at all.
Right. Traditionally, that's what we consider to be 모쏠, right? But Ji, what do you think? Do you think our growing number of millennials and Gen Z in Korea are this so-called 모쏠?
Well, other than the statistics that Siyoung just introduced, I feel that 모쏠 has become a lot more common in Korean society because if you take a look at a lot of the dating programs that are really popular here in the country, they deal with the stories of 모쏠s or they feature them as well. And the overall perception towards these people has changed too. In the past, it would have been a little more negative, thinking that there was something wrong with them. And they themselves were less confident about revealing that they've never dated in their life before because it may mean that they have some social skill problems or personality issues or whatever. But it's not like that these days.
It's not.
Exactly. Other than these personal and internal reasons, there are a lot of social and external reasons that explain it.
And the global trend nowadays, it's really not a lot of millennials and Gen Z, I think, are defining their relationship as clean-cut as our previous generation did. Here in Korea, there's this culture of saying, hey, we're dating from today, it's day one. But I don't think...
doing that here.
Yeah, they love doing that here in Korea. That's why there's so many anniversaries and stuff like that. But I think from our generation and henceforth, we'll be seeing loose, like we don't need to really define the relationship. And that's why most of the perceptions have changed.
Going spiritually.
Exactly. But now I would like to analyze the reasons why millennials and Gen Z are choosing not to date or couldn't date, whether that's since birth or from now on. And we're going to do an OX quiz.
Yay.
I have a few questions for you guys, so if you can take out your OX signs.
All right.
All right. So let's look at the first reason as to why our generation, a lot of people here are choosing not to date. Could it be from any economic burdens? You know, you might feel economically too difficult to be paying for a date or going out on dates. Do you guys think that's a legit reason?
No.
No and yes. Okay, wait, I want to hear from you first, Seoul.
Well, I mean, economic reasons shouldn't be a barrier to a romantic relationship. You know, all in all, it doesn't make sense because you can't afford it, you can't be romantic. That doesn't make sense. I mean, if your partner demands a certain level of gold, let's say, certain amount of presents and fancy dates and things like that, it costs a lot, you can't cover that cost, then too bad, that might not work out. But in my honest opinion, even just going for strolls in a park, if you can't afford to do anything, you can just go on a nice free exhibitions or,
But eventually you would have to eat something.
Yeah, I mean, if you really can't afford to eat anything, I don't think you're in the right mindset to be actively looking, of course, as you know. But it shouldn't be a burden.
It shouldn't be a burden, but I think it's a very legitimate reason why young people in Korea, at least, don't choose to date, because reality is just too hard for them.
Yeah, living costs are just too high.
Exactly, living costs are high, and some people, they're just looking for jobs, and sometimes they just have to live off eating like cheap kimbap.
Yeah, go to the
But you can go have the kimbap together.
You can,
That's true.
Do you have to impress this person
No,
all times?
it's not about impressing, but I feel like they just don't have that kind of capacity to, be in a relationship when they're not satisfied with themselves.
Yeah, it's understandable.
Right?
Now, the second reason I'd like to ask is maybe you're too busy spending quality alone time, whether that be enjoying your hobbies or meeting friends. Your answers to that?
Okay.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
That's a legitimate reason? Okay, what yet again?
It is a legitimate reason because everything has its own timing, right? Your friends might, when you grow old, your friends might leave you, not leave you per se, but they might move on to the next chapters of their life. They might have kids, they might have their own families, they might not have time to spend with you. And that, I think, that is a legit reason to, if you have a group of friends that you love so much, you love spending time with, and hobbies that you want to commit to, I think it's a legitimate reason. I think it's a good reason to put off the dating scene for a little longer.
Because you want to spend individual time.
Exactly,
work
develop
on
yourself a little, and then be free to do whatever you want.
Yeah, I agree, but I said no because I feel like you can do all these things when you're in a relationship as well. And if you're really busy and having fun, spending quality time alone, engaging in your hobbies and other activities, but you have that opportunity to meet the person of your life, then you won't just say, okay, I don't want to meet you because I have these quality activities.
You would want to do it together.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think it really comes down to whether you meet the love of your life.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was about to say. If it's going to be the love of your life, of course everybody's going to do that.
I know, and how do you know whether you met the love of your life? Now, okay, I would like to analyze further reasons after our Skype interview. Until then, let's also look at what our global viewers had to say as to what are the reasons behind singles are deciding to stay single, whether that's from birth. If you take a look at the screen, you can find out what 3 of our viewers had to say based on today's discussion topic. So we asked what they thought are the reasons are for people to stay single. And Will Meaden said they want to be single. Being married isn't for everyone. Sean Gooley said, I know that for myself and a lot of friends. We don't have the money for ourselves, let alone a partner. Women want to be looked after and provided for. And when you don't have a house, a car, or a job, it's very hard to find a woman to be with and marry. SGR said the mindset of someone who never dates is, if I can't date someone who looks exactly like the models I see on Instagram, then I don't want to date anyone at all. All right, and to add more depth into our topic of the day, we're going to include a social researcher, and let's hear how she analyzes this social phenomenon. To find out whether this trend of never dating anyone is a norm only in Korea, let's include a social researcher in our tops. It's Paek Ji-sun from the University of St. Andrews. Great to have you back on our show, Ji-sun.
Thank you so much. Great to be here today.
All right, Ji-sun, so I'd like to ask you the first question. Do you think this type of dating phenomenon is only confined to Korea, this so-called Wosor culture?
I thought this trend was quite interesting because Korean culture naturally reinforces dating. Like, look at K-drama. It's all about love and romance. Koreans naturally want romantic relationships. However, these days, young Koreans are increasingly avoiding dating because there are even trending Korean terms that reflect this. For example, there are words such as 비연애, Yoon, and Bichul-san, indicating no marriage, no childbirth. As far as I'm concerned, there isn't a similar concept in English. This unique trend seems to be specific to Korea.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, definitely seems to be unique to Korea. I think Korea has a different sort of dating culture as well, where it has to be a relationship before you move on to any sort of, physical touch, even holding hands. You've got to be confirmed to be in a relationship. And that's quite interesting. But as a social researcher, apart from the reasons both us on the show and our viewers mentioned, what do you think stops or limits young people from dating these days?
I believe there are several unique reasons specific to Korea. Firstly, there is social pressure surrounding marriage. If you're in your late 20s or 30s and in a relationship, there is a strong expectation to marry your partner and start a family. This traditional expectation often stops people from pursuing relationships. Another factor is that we're not happy enough. Our lives are so busy, we find ourselves burdened with numerous concerns, like Shi-young and Ji-hee pointed out. These factors play a role in why many young people are hesitant to date.
Well, my last question to you is, Ji-sun, do you think this is something to worry about, and the fact that people just aren't dating? And what do you think needs to be done about this?
That's a very interesting question. I think we do need to worry about this trend because, in my perspective, young people in Korea are almost forced to not to be in a relationship. Korea is not an optimal environment for people to raise their children or even engage in dating at the moment. However, the government frequently focuses on the low birth rate rather than our overall quality of life. So I believe if Korean society becomes a more appealing environment for living and raising children, it will naturally motivate people to be more open to be in a relationship.
Right, the socio-economic atmosphere has to be built first in order for people to actually engage or even think about being in a relationship. That's a very good point. Thank you so much, Ji-sun. It was a pleasure to have you here on our show today.
Thank you, Ji-sun.
Thank you. And as Ji-sun mentioned, and as we mentioned here in the studio, there's so many reasons why people choose to stay single, but what we couldn't mention before is COVID-19.
Yes.
Some people might feel like it's too scary to meet someone, especially with motiveless crimes rampaging our
also,
society.
domestic violence is
It's a very big intimate partner violence.
No opportunity to because of social distancing.
But then, as you asked, Ji-sun, do you think we need to be concerned that more people from our generation are choosing not to date? And if that's not the case, how should society and our perspectives towards dating change?
Yeah, I mean, I think it really depends on which countries you look at. I think Korea specifically, because we're talking about Korea. In my honest opinion, and also Ji-sun mentioned, she got really passionate at the end where she talked about the government's effort in promoting relationships and marriage and childbirth and things like that. But they should actually be improving on the social standards, living conditions, quality of life and things like that. But that is, to be honest, something that the government can't really do. I think at the bottom of the reason why we have such difficulties and Korean youngsters having difficulties dating is because, well, the social stigma, the cultural sort of senses of having sort of superficial objectives and things like that. A lot of the times you have the expectations, you got to buy a home if you're a guy. For marriage, you got to have a house, you got to have a car, and have a decent job, and all of these things sort of create a division between your expectations of a relationship, a romantic relationship, and the reality. And even though it might be overgeneralization to think, oh, everybody's superficial, it becomes a burden when you first encounter and try to be in a romantic relationship.
And Chi, what do you think about this question?
I feel like we shouldn't have a stigma towards those who have never dated before, but I really wish that the young people, younger generation, they feel more happy about themselves and their lives and really learn to feel and know that being in a relationship could be a happy thing,
It could be,
yeah. So I just want to encourage them, and I want the government and the country to make the environment more favorable for that to happen.
I think the most important thing for the Mossos here in Korea as well as other countries is to be comfortable in your own skin.
That's so true.
To have confidence. Ladies love confidence. So if you don't think you have anything good in you,
you know
just
what?
be
This
confident.
is very cliche, but love yourself. If you love yourself, you can love others. All right, and we'll be here every day from 9:30 to 10 a.m. Korea time, bringing you more topics young people are talking about. Special thanks to Kim Si-young.
My pleasure.
And Choi Ji-hee.
Always my pleasure.
All right, and thank you everyone for watching. We'll see you tomorrow. We are
News Generation.
Welcome.